Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our event, Exploring the Climate, Biodiversity, and Ocean Nexus, organized by the UNCCC. My name is Julia Kohler. I'm an ocean enthusiast. Okay, I guess we have a technical issue here. We're good. Okay. So again, my name is Julia Kohler. I'm an ocean enthusiast and experienced panelist, and we're still having a technical problem. It's not working. So I can hear some people give me a thumbs up, others don't. We might just have to switch headphones. We're good? Okay. All right. I'm really honored to serve as your moderator for today's discussion. And today's event will focus on the critical nexus between climate, biodiversity, and the ocean. We're showcasing initiatives and good practices on the integration of ocean-based mitigation and adaptation plans into national climate action plans and strategies. We have an exciting agenda lined up, and our speakers will share their insights and experiences on these vital interlinkages. And before we begin, Diana, please scan. Do we see the QR code? There's no QR code? Oh, wonderful. I'd like to ask everyone in the audience to scan this QR code. If you have a phone with you, this will allow you to participate in the event and share your contact details as well. Excellent. All right, to officially open today's session, I'm delighted to introduce Cecilia Kinuthia Nyanga, Director of the ISCP Division at the UNFCCC, to deliver her opening remarks. Cecilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Julia. Really, it's a great honor for me to welcome you all to this event that's organized by the UNFCCC Secretariat. Both under the Paris Agreement and the Convention, the ocean is recognized as a vital carbon sink. The Ocean and Climate Change Dialogue is the only mandated UNFCCC process focused specifically on ocean-based solutions for climate change mitigation and adaptation. The dialogue serves as a critical forum for the exchange of knowledge, the sharing of good practices, and fostering collaboration among parties and observers. One of the key messages from the Ocean Dialogue is urging to strengthen synergies between the Convention on Biological Diversity and the Paris Agreement. And this is by aligning NBSUBs, NAPs, the NDCs to enhance ocean-based national climate action. I urge you all to read the key messages in the informal summary report prepared by the dialogue's facilitators, and this is available on the UNFCCC website Oceans page. In the outcome of the first global stocktake decision, and this was concluded in Dubai at COP28, the parties agreed and recognized the interlinkages of the ocean climate biodiversity nexus, urging the protection, conservation, and restoration of ocean in alignment with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Today, we will hear from colleagues from the UN system, parties and representatives, observers, as well as non-governmental organizations that will underscore the importance of strengthening these synergies across the conventions, enhancing partnerships and promoting international, domestic, and regional cooperation to drive ocean-based climate action. You will also hear how ocean-based measures are being integrated in the new generation NDCs, the NAPs, and NBSUBs. As the Ocean Dialogue this year has emphasized implementation of multilateral frameworks, and popularly now being known as the Rio Trio, can be crucial for the success of national policies and have multiple climate benefits in adaptation and mitigation. As we embark on today's discussion, let us reflect on the interconnectedness of these challenges and solutions we must embrace. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your insights, your ideas as we advance this agenda. And please don't miss the opportunity to engage further at our Pavilion event. Thank you very much, Julia.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, for your inspiring remarks and for setting the stage for our next agenda item. Before we move into presentations where our experts will share their insights and experiences and relative initiatives, I'm going to ask you once again to scan the QR code. This is our Mentimeter, where you can ask questions. You can type in those questions, and we'll then, when we get to the Q&A session, we will try to address some of those questions. All right, our first speaker I'm very happy to introduce is Mireille Atala, Chief of the Adaptation and Resilience Branch at the UNEP. Mireille, the floor is yours. You have a mic.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure for me to be here. Maybe a couple of things that I would like to highlight from the work that we are doing and our perspective on oceans. And maybe, echoing what has just been said is that oceans are absolute victims of climate change, but they are also bearers of solutions for climate change and impacts. And in that sense, maybe at the interface of at least the CBD and UNFCCC are the targets on restoration. So we have a target on restoration under the Global Goal on Adaptation, and we also have a target on restoration under the CBD itself. At UNEP and FAO are the custodians of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, and we actually worked very, very hard to dispel the misconception that restoring ecosystems, that planting trees equates to restoring ecosystems, number one. Number two, to broaden the perspective from land-based ecosystems to marine and coastal ecosystems. And that under both the GBF and the GGA has been achieved and has been acknowledged as all ecosystem restoration across all types of ecosystems, both marine and terrestrial. So that we consider has been a major achievement, but there are some challenges with it as well, because we don't know our oceans very well, we don't know the world, the underwater world very well, or as well as we know the terrestrial ecosystems. But we also see that, for example, when we're looking at early warning systems, sea surface temperature oscillation is a very critical indicator of potential floods and droughts in upstream or upland, highland areas. And so understanding and better detecting changes in our marine and ocean ecosystem are absolutely key for survival or for preventing crisis and climate-induced risks on terrestrial ecosystems. So we can't look at oceans and sea in a separate way, or at oceans and land in a separate way. And this is coming very strongly, particularly in the national adaptation plans and NBSAPs, where we are supporting particularly small islands, developing states in addressing climate-induced impacts and in adapting to climate change. So as part of that, restoring coral reefs, restoring seabed grasses, restoring as well mangrove ecosystems are absolutely key and are emerging as critical responses and critical actions. Now the key challenge is finding the financial arrangements for these restoration activities, and I think we're slowly, going beyond the carbon benefits and the carbon markets that are associated with these restoration activities to further and further acknowledge the long-term economic cost savings that restoring and maintaining such ecosystems actually offer to national and domestic economies. Number one, because domestic public treasuries are the first ones to cash out when there is a disaster or a flood, a sea swell, a tsunami, so on and so forth, but also for the global community, as we now see that the fund to address loss and damage has been operationalized. So anything that helps prevent impacts is something that will help prevent costs of addressing the aftermath of these impacts. Thanks.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. That's very insightful. We'll go next with our next speaker, Alison de Rio Bamon, Directorate of the Climate Change and Risk Management in Colombia.
Thank you. Well, I work in the directorate, and my director, she's currently at the plenary. I'm covering for her. So, well, basically, what we want to state as Colombia is that we hosted the COP16 CDB, and we have made it our task to, we have made it our task to integrate, to continue the work towards the synergies between climate change and biodiversity, because the environmental struggles that we have cannot be seen just from the lens of climate change or just from the lens of biodiversity. They are completely connected. So we have to make that be shown in our work and the way we are planning and implementing our different instruments that we have made in these conventions. So starting from that, the efforts that Colombia has made within our NDC, our MBSABs, has been that in our latest update of the MBSAB, we made sure to make the climate change focus a cross-cutting issue that could be seen in all the goals that we developed. And in our NDC, we have already integrated 22 actions on adaptation related to biodiversity and 23 related to mitigation. So what we want to do in our next update is to enhance this work and take this cross-cutting approach that we introduced in our MBSAP for climate change to do the same in our NDC update. Well, now going specifically on oceans, Colombia is located in an area where we have both access to the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, and 6.5 million people from Colombia are located near coastal areas or insular zones. So it is a key to our economy as well, and for our population well-being to focus on this approach to adapt and mitigate climate change. And 41.6% of our gross domestic product comes from these coastal areas. So that's also key for our economy, besides from our well-being. So it is key for us. Going on specifically the ocean actions, we have 8 goals on ocean action in our NDCs, and 7 goals are specific in our MBSAB on oceans. They are related to either restoration, marine spatial planning, coastal erosion, and they all integrate a participative approach. And so what we want to focus on our ocean action for climate change and biodiversity while we work on these cross-cutting actions are 3. The first is capacity building, which is related to, specifically for us, the promotion or integration of communities in the process of developing and planning the actions and implementing them, because they are the ones who know the territory the best, and that has to be shown in our compromises and our actions. Then we have something that's related to that, and it is the governance models. They have to map out all the actors related or who have any influence in these coastal areas: private sector, academy, so civil society, specific communities. They all have to be taken into account in the governance models, and that's a challenge that we have to address in the best way possible to leave no one behind. And finally, financing is also key for implementation. We have to ensure that we have the resources to actually do the work that we are planning to do, and that's a key challenge that we have. So the central message that we want to share is that to work towards biodiversity and climate change, there needs to be also a focus on restoration and decarbonization efforts, but they have to be articulated so they can be able to work efficiently. And in an international scope, we are aware that there needs to be collaboration on indicators elaboration, considering joint agendas for strategic themes like ecosystem conservation, restoration, water, agri-food system and energy transition, and also food security, which is completely related to fishery. And as I mentioned before, we have 6.5 million of our population that lives in these areas, and many of them depend on fishery. So these are all cross-cutting issues. Finally, there has to be multi-level governance and land use planning and actions within the world's and we need to advance actions with the world's international, bilateral, multilateral, public and private banks to incorporate biodiversity, land, ocean and climate into their development portfolios and investment in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alison. And thank you for highlighting the importance of interconnectivity between not just on a national level, but also internationally. So thank you for those insights from a country that has a huge coastal line. We'll turn to our next speaker, Hava Nabah Nasheed from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Energy of the Maldives.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity as well. Well, coming from the Maldives, we're commonly called as small island developing states, but sometimes we refer to ourselves as large oceanic states as well, because we're surrounded with 99% of water, and we've coexisted with our vast ocean resources for years and years, and a lot of our traditional practices and a lot of our livelihoods depends on these oceans. So we've had to be sure to manage these resources very conservatively, and we've had to ensure we use them sustainably. As you all know, we're surrounded by coral reefs. We've got the 7th largest coral reef in the world. So we've had to make sure that these reefs are protected and we're able to monitor them. So following the 1998 bleaching incident, which was actually one of the most severe bleaching events that we faced, the Maldives Marine Research Institute established a coral reef monitoring framework, and we've established 31 permanent monitoring sites across 10 atolls under this framework. And because this framework was in place, we were actually able to understand the impacts of the 2004 tsunami on our coral reefs as well. And we've been able to see how the coral reefs have been restoring, and we can say that the coral reefs surrounding the Maldives have been recovering faster than other regions in around the Indian Ocean as well. And building off of our framework for coral reefs, we unfortunately do not have a lot of mechanisms in place for our seagrass and our mangroves, but we're currently in the process of taking a stock and trying to understand the national capital accounts of our mangroves and ecosystem beds. We kind of want to understand a stock of what is in our atolls, surrounding the atolls, and the condition of these ecosystems as well. We're also working to create an ecosystem atlas to understand the condition of the mangroves and our seagrass beds, because we believe that we would be able to contribute. I really like what you had to say about the oceans being a solution. So we want to see how we can integrate the current existing ecosystems as a solution to build our resiliency. We also have a lot talking about the CBD and the NBCEPs. We're currently in the process of revising both our NDCs, NEPs, and NBCEPs as well. And one of the benefits Maldives has is all of the focal points, all of the people who are working in this process is all at the Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy. So we're able to do it in a very systematic manner. We are making sure that we carry out stakeholder consultations and do it in a participatory approach, very much like the NBCEP and NDC is encouraged in a whole of society and whole of government approach. So we're able to integrate all opinions, and we ensure that there is gender balance, inclusion of the youth, and we also look into to make sure that it is a community-led approach, because we're very geographically dispersed. We cannot just carry it out from the central region. We have to ensure that we carry it across all the atolls to ensure that all participants are included and all atolls are covered. We also have the 30 by 30 roadmap, because we're very committed to achieving the 30 by 30 target of conserving 30% of our, obviously Maldives can contribute largely to the 30% of protecting oceans goal. So we have developed our 30 by 30 roadmap, and we're incorporating that into our NBCEPs as well. In addition to understand kind of the biodiversity, because we have such vast ocean, we don't really understand, we haven't been able to carry out enough monitoring and research to understand the conditions of our oceans and the biodiversity that is in those oceans. So we're carrying out red list assessments to understand the species and the vulnerability of the ecosystems that we have. So all in all, and also I just want to highlight that our oceans are they're a sanctuary for megafauna. The only obstruction in the Maldivian oceans is our polar line fisheries that we carried out. We've been carrying out sustainable fisheries practices. We've carried on this traditional technique for ages, and since 2019, this has been the only fisheries method that has been allowed in the Maldives. So the only obstruction in our waters is this sustainable source of fisheries. So we've lived very coexistently with our oceans, and while we're in the process of updating our NBCEPs and NDCs and apps, we hope to continue this ambition. And most recently, we've ratified the BBNJ. And with it, it brings us the opportunity to increase our capacity, to have the transfer of marine technology, to better understand and be able to build our resilience and incorporate that into our national policies. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hawa. It's really impressive to hear about the integrated approach that a country as unique as the Maldives are taking both to governance and inclusion. Wonderful. We'll turn to our next presenter, Jinnam Hopotoa from Niue and the Oceanwide Trust, representing the SIDS Pacific Perspective. And I think, Jinnam, you brought us some slides. So why don't you take the floor?
A warm greetings and whakarafalayet to ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jinnam Hopotoa. I'm from the small island of Niue. Just to give you a bit of context of where that is, I'd like to play you a short video of our island and also the initiative that we've got going on that I'm about to speak to you very shortly about. Thank you. Okay, so this video is obviously not working, unfortunately, but we'll just skip to the presentation. So I work for Niue's first ever private-public partnership between the Niue government and an NGO called Sofia Niue that deals with sustainable management of our natural resources. And just alluding to what our colleagues and fellow panelists have mentioned before about having our ecosystems adapting it into a model or into something that we can generate benefits for our communities and also the livelihoods of our people. This initiative here aims to, we have a vision to build a resilient blue economy that is reinforcing long-term ocean protection, climate resilience and sustainable development for Niue. And there are 3 steps into achieving this. We have our EEZ, which is our exclusive economic zone, as a large-scale marine protected area. 100% of that is under management, and we have compliance and implementation strategy. How are we going to structure out and break those things into different areas where we'll manage and monitor? And finally, we have to develop a smart financing mechanism to run all these things. So we have key milestones that we've highlighted back in 2017 as part of this partnership. The Niue government committed 40% of that 100% of our EEZ as a no-take zone, as a marine protected area. So strictly no-take, and it is the second largest no-take zone in the world percentage-wise. And for a small island nation, it is a big commitment in mitigating the issues of climate change, where we have gone past the 30 by 30. We've actually gone 30 by 40 before 2030. So we have a full compliance strategy, as I mentioned in the beginning, as well as advanced monitoring, control, and surveillance, and sustainable tourism policy, and the mechanism that we've designed to manage, look after, and protect the space. It is a big commitment. So all the values and all the benefits that 40% holds, we can't just lock it up. We rely on it as part of our day-to-day living. The ocean is part of us. We have to look after it and manage it properly. So going to our next slide, we have the holistic approach. So we're not only just conserving ocean, we are covering a whole range of other things. So we have here the CPD, the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement, the SDGs, as well as the 30 by 30, actually 30 by 40 now, and also we're hoping to scale this model and help other countries as well to maintain and also hopefully adopt this into their islands and nations as a solution-based initiative. So these are our value drivers, and it will help not only little things, on country, but also has regional and global benefits. So what we've done with all these, we've developed a smart financing mechanism, which is called the Ocean Conservation Commitments. And before you, if you have your information leaflets, the fact sheets, they highlight the mechanism. So what it essentially is, in a nutshell, that 40% that was locked up in our EEZ, we've spliced every square kilometer in that 40%, which equates to 127,000 square kilometers, into what we call an ocean conservation commitment. Whereas individuals, donors, philanthropy, corporates, bilaterals, multilaterals, anyone can contribute into sponsoring that space, and money from that goes into a trust, and then the trust implements those funds across the community, maintenance of traditional knowledge, funding scholarships for kids, as well as also helping the community run the projects that will help maintain our reefs, and a whole heap of other amazing things, as we've highlighted before in those value drivers. And quite often people would ask about, what will they get in return from this sponsorship? So the square kilometer, 1 OCC, equates to $250. We did a cost-benefit analysis on that, and it is about $12.50 per year. That's the cost of locking up that space. And we forward sell that to 20 years because it'll allow us to grow. It'll allow this initiative to carry out and flow and generate these funds. So the endowment is $32 million, and the interest from that is 1.5. That'll be operational fees, and that will help implement all those projects that I mentioned earlier. So here, like everything, there is always a return. So upon sponsoring that space, you'll get a mint certificate. We use blockchain technology in our websites to show you your commitment, and this can be gifted to friends or family. And last year when we launched in New York, because it was close to Christmas, a lot of family and friends from all around the world decided to sponsor OCCs instead of buying kids toys for Christmas as presents. So upon sponsoring, you get impact stories on our website, full transparency across the board, annual reports showing how far we've come and where your funds are going to, as well as our MRV, keeping track of all the steps and the goals, the global goals that was mentioned to earlier. Next slide, please. Okay, so just wanted to highlight these are our partners here. There's a lot of room for more partners and contributors if you are keen. If anyone in the room are keen to help support this initiative, it is a great initiative. It doesn't only have indigenous values or benefits, it also has global and future benefits as well. So you can scan the QR code here to find out a bit more. Sorry, we're just limited on time for this presentation. There's 20 other slides on this, but we have to cut it down. And we have anchor contributors, comms and marketing, and we are seeking for partners and support to help drive this initiative. We can't do it alone. And this is our contribution not only to the people of Niue, it is to the region and to the world. It brings global benefits. So we need the partnership. We need the drive from everyone's contributions to help us move forward all together. So this is Niue's efforts and our contribution to the NDCs. We've just launched our updated NDCs a couple of days ago, and happy to say we are leaders in the ocean space in conservation. And you can join our journey by contributing, as well as also, it doesn't have to be, we're not asking for, a lot of money and stuff to help. This is more of a partnership. This is more of an exchange. It has not to do with the mere fact that you're giving money. This goes to something way, way bigger and into the future. So on that note, if you have time as well, check out the video, which is on National Geographic and Pristine Seas. It's called Protecting Paradise. That's the documentary that was launched about 2 months ago. A trailer was set up for the beginning, but that didn't play, unfortunately. So if you have time, it's on Hulu and Disney+. And also happy to say that Conservation International, as well as our other partners, we were able to secure and also win an international award for it's called the Global Innovation Awards, but a company called Fast Company in New York just recently this year. So we're proud to support and share this initiative with everyone, and hopefully the solution-based idea can help other communities, other countries. Thank you very much.
Wow, this is a truly impressive and such an innovative approach. When we spoke earlier, I think I mentioned to you, or you mentioned to me that other countries are trying to copy and adopt this approach. So in this case, I'll say this is, if other countries will copy this, then kudos to you and your country for this amazing idea and inspiration. And I think I actually found a Christmas present. Okay, we'll go next with Tristan Terrell, Program Management Officer for Biodiversity, Climate Change, and Dry and Subhumid Lands at the CBD Secretariat.
Thanks very much. Do I really have to follow that? This is going to be such a letdown. By comparison, unfortunately, no beautiful slides and great initiatives to talk about. I wanted to highlight, so we have just had our 16th COP in beautiful Cali, Colombia, under the guidance, the leadership that the Colombian government provided. And there were some, I think, quite progressive decisions from that on the biodiversity, climate, and in particular ocean sort of nexus. But also, I think to a certain extent, the ocean elements have not been picked up quite as much by the international community to the same extent as maybe some of the others. So this was the first chance for parties to the convention to come together as the COP since the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which has the 23 action-orientated targets that need to be met by 2030. And oceans and marine and coastal systems are mentioned in a number of the targets, but the reality is that they are relevant across the whole framework. So they're specifically mentioned under restoration. Thank you very much, Mireille, for highlighting the importance of restoration. And under Target 3, which is the protected areas one. So the 30 by 30, or maybe it should have been higher ambition, but absolutely. I mean, that particular one, the 30 by 30 in terms of protected areas and other forms of effective area-based conservation measures, is very important, absolutely. We need to be recognizing those important areas and protecting them. But we also need to be recognizing that sustainable management and restoration is essential in those particular areas, but then in the other 70%, when we do achieve it, I should say when we achieve it. But we've seen from previous target setting processes that marine and coastal areas lag behind the attention for terrestrial areas. So there has been a long gestating process around ecologically or biologically significant areas in marine areas, and while there's been some technical work done on that which has been taken up by the High Seas Treaty as part of its process, and it's great to see that has now come to be adopted. there has actually now been a formal adoption of the EBSA process within the CBD, and that was one of the main outcomes from Cali, which, as I say, probably has not received the attention that it should have. But there are a number of other decisions that were also taken that are also relevant. One is relating to indigenous peoples and local communities, and the recognition, the respect towards their traditions, their cultures, their practices, and their knowledge systems has been the body that sort of contributes that within our process has been elevated up to a formal subsidiary body. So it stands on equal level with the subsidiary body on scientific and technical and technological advice, and the subsidiary body on implementation. There's also now a subsidiary body on 8J, so which is the article for Indigenous peoples, local communities. So it emphasizes the importance of their knowledge and their practices within the work of the convention, and therefore within the implementation of that, whether that's at national, regional, but also at subnational levels, and especially at local levels. Because frankly, these discussions about climate change, about biodiversity loss, etc., at the local level, they all blur into a single connected poly-crisis. We tend to separate them out for whatever reason, whether it's politics or just trying to simplify very complex issues, but the reality is that doesn't work. We need to be tackling these cohesively and synergistically. And the final one, it was in particular across the Rio conventions, but also the biodiversity-related conventions, to set up a formal process looking for opportunities for synergies at the various levels, international, national, and subnational, for both the recognition of approaches, but in particular the implementation of those. And there's been talk about a potential joint work programs across the different conventions to help support parties, because they are the primary implementers of these conventions, to develop synergistic practices. And it's wonderful to hear about some of these examples from these three countries. But of course, there are many countries around the world who are not as advanced, perhaps, as these here. But also, as you mentioned, in terms of the financing and other things, looking at opportunities about where the means of implementation, whether it is the finance or the capacity support or the technical solutions or whatever it might be, can be brought together to help not just in linking the policy processes themselves, but ultimately the implementation on the ground. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tristan. Very interesting to hear how the convention, how the CBD's perspective and how the convention brings it all together. We have these beautiful individual examples, but I think CBD is certainly needed to bring it all together. So thank you. All right, we'll turn to our next speaker, last but certainly not least, James Leslie, Global Program Manager for the Food and Agricultural Commodity System at the UNDP. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. In this year of the Rio Trio, deadlines for both the national biodiversity strategies that are being updated, as well as the nationally determined contributions for climate change, are almost coinciding, and this provides us with a rare window of opportunity to align both our biodiversity and our climate change agendas. So we consider this particularly a special moment to pursue ambitious action on our ocean and recognize its critical role in addressing both biodiversity and climate change goals. There's been talk of weaving a blue thread both across the national biodiversity and climate strategies, an idea that UNDP wholeheartedly supports, and also reflects the close integration of these two agendas in our own climate and ocean policy as an organization. UNDP's ocean promise is that by 2030, 100 coastal countries, including all of the small island developing states, will realize the maximum potential of their blue economies through sustainable, low-emission, and climate-resilient ocean use. We have partnered towards this end with countries to build equitable, inclusive, low-carbon blue economies that leave no one behind at the nexus of climate change, biodiversity conservation, and forward-looking ocean policy, delivering on multiple national objectives related to economic development, job and livelihood creation, food security, as well as poverty reduction. UNDP is also supporting countries worldwide in their efforts to integrate nature-based ocean solutions into national climate frameworks, including the NDCs, the NAPs, as well as the national biodiversity strategies and action plans. The impact of this approach is particularly visible in coastal and small island developing states, where we see the integration of ocean-based measures in NDCs can really strengthen both the level of ambition to address climate change as well as biodiversity. And as we've heard today in the panel, SIDS in the Pacific as well as in the Caribbean are protecting and restoring key blue carbon ecosystems, mangroves, seagrasses, coral reefs, advancing nature-based solutions that not only enhance biodiversity but also increase the resilience towards climate. And coastal ecosystem restoration, as we've also heard, is an important opportunity to sequester carbon and deliver multiple benefits at the same time. The Seychelles, for example, has already integrated blue carbon initiatives into both its NDC as well as into its NBSAP. And this boosts both climate and biodiversity resilience for the population. And we all know that the challenge of avoiding fragmentation, as was just mentioned by our colleague from the CBD, is very important in order to maximize the impact of an integrated approach to both mitigation, adaptation, and biodiversity conservation. And in this context, the Ocean Dialogue of 2024 has underscored the potential of integrating these objectives in both NDCs as well as NBSAPs. So we consider that now we are at an inflection point for ocean policy. There is particularly an increased awareness of the role of oceans at the nexus of both climate change and biodiversity. And this is, of course, evident in the High Seas or the BBNJ agreement, which we at UNDP consider to be really crucial for many developing countries to be able to pursue sustainable and livelihood-generating economies and societies for the benefit of all. The BBNG agreement establishes a framework whereby the protection and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction, an area comprising 2/3 of the ocean surface, has relatively been overlooked in global climate negotiations. So at UNDP, we believe that the BBNJ offers new opportunities to align ocean-based climate actions with broader international biodiversity objectives. The treaties focus on area-based conservation, environmental impact assessments, and capacity building can significantly contribute to the achievement of the CBD's post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, as well as the climate goals outlined in the Paris Agreement. So we as UNDP, we are supporting countries in their efforts to both understand and implement the BBNJ, and also to strengthen regional ocean governance frameworks that will facilitate its implementation. We consider now to be a critical moment for ocean-based action, and so ambitious action on our oceans can be both developed in both our climate as well as our biodiversity policies, and must be integrated such that impact at scale is truly achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And I think it's the blue thread, the idea of a blue thread that hopefully all of us are going to pull through as we continue to support climate action and ocean action. So thank you all to all of our panels for your valuable contributions. Your job is not over. We're going to open the floor now to the audience for questions. And I think we have received one or a couple, actually. Two questions. So I'm just going to read the question, and whoever wants to, would like to address, can go first. So what do you think big countries could learn from small countries like Niue in terms of effective implementation of climate and biodiversity action? I might actually address this question to Alison, because country being a little slightly bigger than Niue, what do you think you could learn from an initiative like the CCC?
Well, definitely an important issue that we always need to take into account in our country is that the different regions that we have, the different communities, can sometimes be very different from each other. So to address the problems that they have, that the communities have in their specific setting, sometimes it has to be implemented in a way that you think of a solution specifically for the place and not necessarily just a national solution that must apply to all the territory, because that will be limited. So what we could definitely learn from other smaller countries is to address these ecosystems and these societies that are smaller and more like smaller and like a united community, how they're addressing the problems and how they're thinking about the problems and finding specific solutions that works for them, and try to do that in our different regions and our different communities in a collaborative way. So that's definitely something that we should take into account and learn from you, and look at the examples of how you are addressing your different ecosystems, because we have many different ecosystems, coral reefs, mangroves, seagrasses, islands and coast, and all of them have their own problems and their own issues, and we should definitely learn from the way you are addressing those topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Anyone else would like to comment? Yeah, sure, Mireille.
So I think whether it's UNEP, UNDP, we support countries of different sizes, right, in putting in place their planning and policy frameworks. And I think just picking up on what Alison has mentioned, Niue is really, really a good example of how we've kind of applied a mental and intellectual fragmented framework to things that are not fragmented. And so that convergence between the biodiversity and climate agendas and sustainable development agenda and reduction of poverty and so on is really something that materializes much more easily at a smaller scale. But then when, precisely like Alison is saying, when we are supporting larger countries in addressing those two agendas congruently, we do see that taking that landscape or ecosystem-based approach makes a lot of sense, because it helps bring things together in a given space and in a way that makes sense. So that kind of that's something that can be transposed as well.
It's a very great perspective. Thank you. Jinam, what do you think bigger countries could learn from a small country like Niue?
Yeah, I think just alluding to what our fellow panelists here and what you've mentioned as well with regards to the nexus and the holistic approach. For us, small island developing states, well, big island nations, we are affected not only by one thing when it comes to climate change, right? It spans right across the board for us, and inevitably as well for other countries on the Pacific Islands. So for the bigger countries to look and say, oh, right, these guys are just facing, sea level rise. And it's quite often that's the general perspective, right, when it comes to small island developing states and with the issues of climate change. But if you go deeper into it and have a look, go into those countries and you see all the challenges that we face, it's much, much more than just one. So I think the appreciation as well as also the considering all these things, it's very important for us small island nations to have our voices heard, and also for the bigger nations to consider. Here at COP, for example, is a clear example of that. We keep coming to these COPs every year, and we try and we are at the forefront of climate change, all of us, and yet we are the ones least contributing to it. And the bigger nations, no offense, but the least they could do is fulfill their pledges and provide us the assistance, provide us the resources, the financial support to drive these initiatives, to make these things happen. because quite often we are pushed out and you can't even see us sometimes. For example, Niue, a tiny little dot in the South Pacific. People don't hear about us, but if you listen to our voices as a collective, as a Pacific nations all together, then you'll understand. You come there and you see the reality that we face and what we are doing. We are the ones, because we're at the forefront, we are doing our best to try and battle these things. So for the bigger nations to appreciate and just consider that. We come all this way, and we would really love to see some substantial support, okay? That's my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Jinyum. I think the good news is that no one in this room will walk away without appreciation for what your island is doing. So thank you. I'll turn to the next question. How would NDCs leverage national actions on the nexus of climate, biodiversity, and ocean? I think that might actually be a question to Mireille and maybe Tristan or James, if you want to take it. Mireille, why don't you? Okay, good. Okay, the gentleman first. So how could NDCs leverage national actions on the nexus of climate, biodiversity, and ocean? Was the question from the audience.
Certainly. So, as we've heard from the other panelists, there are multiple opportunities to integrate into the NDCs climate adaptation around oceans, recognizing the importance of oceans for increasing the resilience of coastal communities. For example, through the restoration as well of mangroves, of coral reefs, of coastal ecosystems. This provides important adaptation benefits potentially to coastal communities. And we are also seeing opportunities around mitigation, around blue carbon. And there are already innovative finance mechanisms that are being put to use, for example, blue bonds that are allowing communities and countries to access finance to support conservation, restoration, mitigation, and adaptation efforts. So there are multiple opportunities around both coastal ecosystems and marine ecosystems to contribute to both the adaptation agenda as well as the mitigation agenda.
And there we see this blue thread pulling through again. Yeah, thank you. Mireille, do you have a additional perspective?
Yeah, maybe just to complement that a little bit. I think we really need to be cautious in terms. A country similar to Niue or Maldives is Sao Tome and Principe, and we support Sao Tome and Principe with preparing its national adaptation plan and its NBSAP. There's three professionals in the Ministry of Environment that are working on climate matters, probably. As you were mentioning as well, you know, addressing the same people are probably addressing nature and biodiversity issues. So my recommendation is really to think about what it means in terms of transaction costs, because when ocean solutions are included, let's say, as a mitigation option, they may generate more finance via different channels and mechanisms, but it may also generate more work, more transaction costs, and more investments that are required in complex MRV system, which, as you have mentioned, you know, monitoring and evaluation is not necessarily an area that is very heavily invested for, and is also a costly area for, particularly for small islands, but for large ocean states, right? Because the state is so big. And so my recommendation is really think about what is it that, you know, what would in the cost implications of different options and where things are better suited, including, for example, from the 30 by 30 objectives. Protected areas need not be paper parks. They require enforcement, management, investments in making sure that they are actually preserved. And so whether certain areas are designated as protected areas or are rather restored and kind of softly managed as opposed to a hard legal conservation status, are really things that we encourage in defining and determining what approach is better suited.
Thank you, Mireille. Thank you. We have time for one more short question from the audience. Does anyone have Another question? Yes, please. The mic is coming.
Okay. I think this will... Okay. My name is Nhlanhla from South Africa. Mine relates to the distant water fishing fleet that often access the fishing grounds of many coastal states in exchange for some revenue. There's been a number of reports that show to the vast ecosystem damage that is caused by those fleets, and to a certain extent that the governments are unable to enforce their local legislation because of the threat of losing the revenue related to that. I don't know what is your take on that, particularly when you consider that some of these countries have made commitments to the 30-30 objectives. Thank you.
James, would that be a question for you?
Sure, I can take a try at it. I think here we come back to the importance again of strengthening ocean governance, and particularly the opportunity that we have now with the BBNJ agreement that is now in the hands of the countries to ratify. This is an important step in improving ocean governance that should also be accompanied by site-based conservation strategies, spatial planning and as well as spatial monitoring, and enhancing the use of technology for large-scale monitoring of our oceans beyond particularly jurisdictional borders. So I think here we welcome countries to continue to further understand and put into implementation the BBNJ as a strategy to strengthen conservation beyond borders.
Thank you, James. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the audience. I think we've successfully highlighted the synergies across UN processes, initiatives, national action plans that collectively help raise ocean-based climate ambition. And as emphasized by the key messages from our co-facilitators at the Ocean Dialogue Report, there is an opportunity for parties to align their NDCs, their NAPs, their NBSAPs to develop more coherent national strategies for climate and biodiversity, while also enhancing coastal resilience and marine conservation. By recognizing those solutions to these challenges are often shared, parties can better integrate their actions, maximizing their collective contributions and impact across the sectors. Thank you to everyone here, and wish you a good rest of COP and a safe journey home. Thank you.